The first lie told that day wasn't spoken. It was hanging on the refrigerator. Iris's wedding photos, arranged like a shrine, smiling from every angle. Mine? Not one. 8 months since the invitations I sent. 8 months of silence, so thick I could hear it even now. But the words that finally split the room open came later. Won the strike. Thanksgiving had barely started when Iris leaned back, swirled her wine, and fired. Still single, Lotus. At 54, that's rough. No whisper. No hesitation. A public execution disguised as banter. Mom froze. Dad stared at his plate. And I felt that old, familiar weight. Decades of being the daughter no one defended. I set my fork down. I wouldn't worry about me, I said. I'm married. Silence cracked across the table like glass. Even the old hallway clock seemed to hold its breath. They didn't know it yet. But that one sentence was the earthquake their family portrait had never prepared for. 2. The house that never changed. I grew up in that house. Same creaking floors. Same pine-scented candles Mom lit every holiday. Her version of pretending we were perfect. But perfection only works when no one looks closely. Up close, you saw it all. How every conversation bent toward Iris. How Dad evaporated at the first sign of conflict. How Mom's eyes softened only when her younger daughter walked into the room. I used to think I imagined it. Kids invent stories to survive the imbalance. But somewhere between 20 and 50, the blur sharpened. My milestones became footnotes. Hers became festivals. 3. The missing years. When Mom and Dad forgot my college graduation because Iris had a can't-miss sorority event, they called it an unfortunate overlap. When they skipped my birthday dinner twice because Iris was touring wedding venues, Mom said, "You know how important this is for her." Important for her. Optional for me. Story of my life. When I bought my condo in Seattle alone, I sent photos. They replied with a thumbs up. No call. No, how do you feel? Nothing. But every holiday, I still drove 4 hours home. Brought pies. Flowers. Gifts. Hope. Evan used to tease me gently. You don't have to earn a place that should already be yours. I'd laugh, pretending I didn't wonder if maybe I did. 4. The arrival. Walking into the house that afternoon, something inside me tightened, a reflex years in the making. Mom hugged me with one arm, while stirring gravy with the other. Lotus, sweetheart, you made it, she said, already talking about Iris's honeymoon plans before she even let go of me. Dad offered a tired smile over mashed potatoes. Iris wasn't there yet, but she was. She was everywhere. On the fridge. In Mom's tone. In the way the whole house seemed to breathe differently when her name was mentioned. My own wedding photo didn't exist there. Not even a printed copy. 8 months of invitations, emails, follow-ups, hope, nothing. Mom finally looked at me long enough to ask, "You did bring the cranberry sauce, right?" Of course I did. That was my role. Show up. Contribute. Stay quiet. I set the dish down, and something inside me shifted. A quiet, dangerous click. For the first time, I wasn't sure why I had come. Habit, maybe. Or the tiny hope this time would be different. But deep down, I knew better. The shatter point. I didn't plan to say I was married. It wasn't a dramatic reveal. It wasn't revenge. It was survival. It was the first time in my life I didn't let Iris's words land without a shield. And when the room went silent, Mom's hand frozen halfway to her wine glass, Dad blinking like he'd misheard me, Iris staring as if I'd broken a rule she wrote, I realized something. This family had never expected me to have a life outside the role they assigned me. Invisible, available, unimportant. But families break long before anyone notices. Sometimes all it takes is one sentence to expose the cracks that were always there. The storm didn't arrive with Iris. It was already sitting at the table, pressed between the silverware and the silence. I knew that the moment I walked through the door. 1. The house recognized her before anyone did. Her heels hit the hardwood. 20 minutes late, clicking like she'd scheduled her entrance to remind the house who the favorite was. Mom brightened so instantly. It was like someone switched on a lamp. Dad sat up straighter. And Iris? She gave me the same look you give a neighbor you can't quite remember the name of. Barely a nod. A flicker of recognition. A dismissal disguised as greeting. It shouldn't have surprised me, but it still landed. 2. The unsaid words were loudest. Traffic was insane, she announced, while shrugging off her coat. Colin dropped me so he could park. Partners don't get holidays off, you know. Mom's smile softened in that proud, glowing way she reserved for only one daughter. That's what happens when you marry someone successful. Not aimed at me. Didn't have to be. The shrapnel still found its target. Under her breath, Iris whispered something. Mom responded with a laugh too thin to be real. Dad cleared his throat. That tired, rehearsed sound that meant, I heard it, but I won't do anything about it. By the time we made it into the dining room, the hierarchy was already in place. Iris, center stage. Me, background noise. A role I'd rehearsed my entire life, without ever auditioning for. But tonight, something didn't sit the way it used to. The comments didn't settle into the old wounds. They hovered, like they were trying to land somewhere new, and finding nowhere soft left. 3. The wedding that wasn't mine to remember. Mom launched into her favorite pastime, retelling Iris's wedding, like it was a national event she personally hosted. The venue had a wait list, but Iris found a way. Oh, Lotus, you should have seen the flowers. Breathtaking. I had seen them. Twice. Online. Alone. Iris swirled her wine, smirking. Yeah, it was perfect. Everything went exactly the way it should. Honestly, I don't know how we'd top it. A pause. Sharp. Calculated. Not that anyone's competing. My jaw tightened. I reached for my water instead of responding, because that was always the pattern. Her success equals celebration. My success equals footnote. For a lifetime of flashbacks in a single second, Mom leaving my 8th grade recital early to pick Iris up from practice. Dad missing my scholarship dinner because Iris needed help with the project. Birthdays forgotten. Graduations overshadowed. Wins minimized. Losses unnoticed. I used to defend them, make excuses, tell myself they didn't mean it. But watching Iris tonight, her smile a perfect, polished blade, I finally saw it clearly. She wasn't careless. She was deliberate. She enjoyed it. And my parents, they let her. 5. The air thickened before the words did. Dinner should have been ordinary. Dried turkey. Overcooked beans. Mom whisking gravy like she could fix a broken family by stirring harder. But every sound felt louder. Every silence felt heavier. I sat in my childhood seat, the place I learned to fold myself smaller, across from the sister who always took up the oxygen. Colin slipped in late, politely nodding at me, the way people do when they aren't sure if you're part of the group or just passing through. Iris leaned into him, turning the smallest details of her life into a performance meant for a crowd bigger than 4. Her honeymoon, her new house, her travel plans. Mom fed her every line. Dad echoed with an occasional MHM, afraid of choosing the wrong moment to exist. Then Iris turned to me. Casual, smooth, practiced. So, she said, tilting her head like she was about to offer kindness. But everyone at the table felt it, the air shifting, the temperature dropping, the knife being unsheathed. The jab was coming, and this time, I wasn't the same girl who used to swallow it. Before she said my name, I felt it, the shift in the air, the way the room tensed like it knew a blade was about to be unsheathed. Then Iris delivered it. 1. The question that wasn't a question. She speared her turkey, looked at me with that sugar-coated voice she used when she was about to aim low. Lotus. Sweetened, stretched, turned sour at the edges. At 34 and still single. Is that a choice now? Mom inhaled, sharp. Colin stopped chewing. Even Dad lifted his eyes. There it was. The strike she'd been warming up for since she walked through the door. But instead of sinking the way it used to, the comment hit something solid this time. A part of me she didn't know existed. I wiped my fingers on the napkin and met her stare fully. 2. The first crack in her confidence. That's interesting, I said quietly. Why do you assume I'm single? She blinked. Just once. But enough to show she hadn't expected resistance. Well, are you not? Even the hallway clock stalled, its ticking suddenly uneven, like it was deciding whether to keep time or witness history. I set my napkin down. I'm married. Silence. Not the regular kind, the paralyzing kind. Mom's spoon froze. Dad's jaw locked. Colin looked at Iris like waiting for her to tell him what expression to wear. Iris laughed first.
Short. Patronizing.
A sound that didn't match her eyes.
Right.
Married.
Sure.
To who? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. This wasn't about who I married. This was about the fact that she had no idea and wasn't supposed to. 3. The shift. Mom leaned forward, voice trembling, with that blend of condescension and denial she specialized in. Lotus, darling, if you were married, you would have told us. I did, I said. No, honey, she insisted, smiling too tightly. You didn't. I did. I repeated, calmer. 8 months ago. Their faces fell in a chain reaction. Confusion, disbelief, and then something sharper.
Fear.
Iris scoffed, masking the tremor in her shoulders. Come on. We never got anything. Not an invite, not a call, nothing. I held her gaze. You didn't get them, because someone made sure. You wouldn't. Her smirk twitched. Just a ripple. But enough. Mom's voice cracked. What are you implying? I didn't answer her. Instead, I reached for my phone. Slow, deliberate, sliding it onto the table, like placing a final card in a game I never wanted to play. Iris's grip tightened around her wine glass, knuckles whitening. She knew something was coming. Maybe not what, but enough to feel the loss of control. Dad swallowed, his voice thin. Lotus, what are you talking about? For the proof begins. I tapped the screen. The first file opened. The glow from my phone reflected in the silverware, bending the light, bending the room, bending the truth they believed was intact. I'm talking about the invitations, I said. The ones I mailed, the ones that were signed for, the ones that never made it. To anyone but her. I didn't point at Iris.
I didn't have to.
Every eye turned to her, like the room already knew its culprit. Her lips parted, her shoulders stiffened. A tiny crack appeared in the mask she'd worn all her life. And I hadn't even shown them the worst part yet. I let the silence settle, thick, suffocating, while Iris strangled the stem of her wine glass, as if she could squeeze the truth out of existence. This is ridiculous, she muttered. Nobody got anything from you, Lotus. If you were actually married, which I doubt, you would have made sure we knew. I turned the phone so they could see. The first slide was simple. A tracking history. 5 envelopes. 5 addresses. Delivered. Signed for. Same morning. Dad leaned in, squinting. Signed by who? I zoomed in. The signature filled the screen. Dramatic loops. Tight trailing scribbles. The same handwriting sprawled across every childhood permission slip. Not just familiar. Unmistakable. Iris's. I watched the color drain from her face. Faster than her brain could rebuild an excuse. She laughed, but the sound cracked. Anyone can sign for mail, Lotus. Delivery people mess things up all the time. They didn't, I said, because I checked twice. And the carrier confirmed. It was received at this house. Mom's eyes flinched, barely, but enough to show she knew. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was betrayal. The word confirmed did it. It punctured something in the room. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough to push denial off its last ledge. Dad's breathing tightened. Colin looked around like he'd stumbled into the wrong family. Mom whispered his name, but even she sounded unsure. I wasn't finished. Evidence that didn't need explanation. I swiped. Emails. Here, I said, turning the screen. The electronic invitations. Opened from this house's IP. Then deleted. Mom's fingers interlocked like she was praying the truth away. Maybe her father opened it by accident. I didn't, Dad said sharply. Sharper than I'd ever heard him. I don't even check that inbox. The room stilled. Dad contradicting Mom was rare. Doing it in front of company? Unthinkable. Mom's eyes shot toward Iris. Sweetheart, do you know anything about this? Iris's back straightened.
No.
One syllable. Frozen.
Fake.
But her eyes, they flinched. The dates they couldn't ignore. I opened the next file.
Calls.
I called on May 4th. Then May 11th. May 18th.
20th.
25th. Each date dropped into the silence like pebbles falling into a bottomless well. Voicemails. Texts. Even a message in the family group chat. Dad frowned. Group chat. Mom blinked. I'm not in a group chat with you. You were, I said. Until someone removed me. That one hit the table like a brick. Colin shifted in his seat, finally realizing something ugly was happening right beside him. Iris cracks first. Iris slammed both palms on the table. The silverware jumped. Why are you attacking me? Because you didn't get the attention you wanted? Because your life isn't as exciting as mine. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was textbook Iris.
Deflect.
Accuse. Dominate. Let everyone scramble to protect her. But not tonight. I'm attacking you? I asked, voice steady. You're the one who made sure my wedding happened without my family. Her jaw clicked. I didn't do anything. Yes, you did, I said. You signed for the mail. You opened the emails. You deleted them. And you let me believe for 8 months that I meant nothing to any of you. Mom gasped. Dad closed his eyes. And Iris, the girl who'd always been bulletproof. She fractured. Not loudly. Not visibly. Just enough for the truth to ooze through the cracks. You're so dramatic, she hissed. You always have been. You take everything personally. I got married, I said quietly, and none of you came. That stopped everything. They turn on each other. Dad swallowed hard. Lotus, why didn't you call again? Or come by? If it mattered that much? An old pain rose in me, but I didn't let it become anger. I did call. Over and over. I sent reminders. I begged. I pointed at the logs. I chased the people who should have been chasing me. Mom pressed a napkin to her lips, like she could smother the truth, if she held it tight enough. We had no idea, she whispered, her voice bleeding guilt around the edges. It was the first crack in the story she'd clung to for years. But Iris wasn't done. Her voice dropped. Quiet, cold, poisonous. Maybe the invitations weren't meant to be seen. The room recoiled. Mom stared at her. What does that mean, Iris? Her eyes flickered. Panic fighting pride. It means, she whispered, I didn't think it was a big deal. Her little beach wedding. 20 people. I wasn't going to let it ruin the momentum before my wedding. Dad froze. Mom's hands slipped away from her face. Colin, her husband, looked at her like she'd turned into a stranger mid-meal. You threw them away? Dad asked, voice trembling. I didn't throw them away, she snapped. I just kept them from distracting everyone. Everyone, Mom repeated, horrified. I was getting married, Iris shouted. It was supposed to be my year. And mine didn't count? I asked softly. She looked at me, eyes shiny, jaw tight, and gave the most honest answer she'd ever given me. No. The moment everything finally makes sense. It should have shattered me. It should have destroyed whatever pieces of me were still trying to belong. But it didn't. It clarified everything. I nodded once. I see. The first thing I remember isn't the shouting. It's the clink. Iris's wine glass tapping the table, too gently, too deliberately, right before the truth split the night open. Hours earlier, or maybe minutes, Time was slippery in that house. Mom had whispered my name like it was still hers to shape. Lotus. Sweet at first. Then stretched thin. Then soured. And somewhere between her sigh and Dad's stiff jaw, Iris asked the question she'd waited years to weaponize. At 34, still single, is that a choice now? But they didn't know then, not yet, that the question would crack open a secret that didn't belong to me anymore. It belonged to everything they'd ignored. The moment time stopped, I remember wiping my fingers on the napkin. Deliberate.
Slow.
Like I was preparing for a duel. Then, "That's interesting," I said. "Why do you assume I'm single?" Silence. A heavy, waiting silence. "Well, aren't you?" Iris asked. That's when the house tilted. Or maybe it was me. "I'm married." The world froze. Spoon midair. Fork abandoned. Dad's eyes wide. Colin confused, like someone changed the script without telling him. And Iris, she laughed. A quick, brittle sound. The sound of a woman who thought she was untouchable. To who? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The power had already shifted. The invisible wedding. Dad tried to rationalize it. Mom tried to soften it. Colin tried to disappear. But Iris, she tensed. Her shoulders rising the way guilty people do. So I placed my phone on the table. Slowly. Like a card in a high-stakes game. The room leaned in. I'm talking about the invitations. I didn't point at her. I didn't need to. Every pair of eyes at the table turned toward Iris. The first file. Tracking history. 5 envelopes. All delivered. All signed for. By one looping, unmistakable signature. Iris's. Her mask cracked, just slightly, but I saw it. The deleted invites. Next, the email logs. Opened. Deleted. Same IP. Same house. Same thief. Mom tried to defend her. Dad broke pattern and contradicted her, a shock in itself. Then the call logs. May 4th, 11, 18, 20, 25. My voice messages dropping into a void Iris had dug with her own hands. And when I said, "You removed me from the family group chat," they all stopped breathing. The unmasking. The moment Iris slammed her palms on the table, silverware rattled. It wasn't rage. It was panic dressed as authority. "Why are you attacking me?" "Because your life isn't as exciting as mine." I almost laughed, a tired old laugh. "You made sure my wedding happened without my family." A single sentence. A full battlefield. Then she broke. Not loudly. No screaming. Just a quiet, vicious truth leaking out. It wasn't a big deal. Your little beach wedding. I wasn't going to let it distract everyone. It was supposed to be my year. My mother's face crumpled. My father's voice cracked. "You threw them away." Her final blade. It didn't count. The departure. I don't remember standing. Only the sound my chair made, that sharp scrape, like cutting ties with a blade. Mom's voice trembled. "Where are you going?" "Away," I said. "Away from being invisible. Away from begging for crumbs. Away from a table that only noticed me when I bled." Iris's voice followed me, shaky and furious. "You ruined Thanksgiving." I didn't even turn.
No.
"You ruined my wedding." This is just the truth catching up to you. The hallway felt colder. The photos watched me leave. The house resisted. But the night air outside, that felt like freedom. The home I chose. When I reached Seattle, Evan didn't ask for explanations. He just held me. "It finally happened," I whispered. He nodded. Because he knew. The following days were strange. Dad called, quietly, carefully, not to defend, but to listen. A first. Iris emailed an apology that felt forced out of her by a therapist's hand. I read it. Didn't reply. Mom stayed silent. And for once, it didn't break me. Evan's family invited us over the next day. They laughed, asked about me, saw me. And for the first time, I understood something frightening in its simplicity. This is what home feels like. Not blood, not history, but safety, presence,
love.
Healing didn't come like a door swinging open, more like a window cracking just enough to let clean air in. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I was the woman who walked away,
Who chose peace?
who chose herself. And if you've ever had to leave behind the people who taught you how to disappear, you're not alone. Tell me where you're listening from. Share your story below. And if this one stayed with you, hit subscribe so you never miss the next.